Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Other Talk within the Nine-Sided Circle. I'm one of your two hosts, Noor Kyle.
And I'm the other one of your two hosts, Mushtaq Ali.
With his coffee, yes. And we want to welcome you to our once monthly talk that we do for folks who cannot make it to our usual time at 6:30 p.m. every Sunday Pacific time. This is our 10:30 a.m. talk, which we do every third Sunday of every month, so that we can have a little bit more of an opportunity to give people a chance to get involved and all that stuff. Thank you for being here. It's great to see some new faces, some faces we're getting to know, and some longtime old friends. Awesome to have all of you. And for those of you who are watching on the replay, welcome. It's so great to have you with us as well, and we really appreciate the support you're showing us just by taking time to view our content. And you can further support us by doing that whole like, comment, subscribe thing. You know the deal. Other than that, do we have any announcements to make? Yes, we do. We are still hosting open enrollment for our digital Durga, which is our Sufi sohbet, where we go into further detail on Sufism in particular in practice. So it goes into theory, it goes into philosophy, it goes deeper into practice for people who are specifically interested in taking up, embodying the values of Sufism in everyday life. And we will be hosting our welcoming meeting on the 27th of January. That's this month at 8 p.m. And you can sign up for that. Probably in our description, we'll have a link to that. And once we hit January 27th, we're going to be closing the registration for this year, and it will not be open until next year. So keep that in mind.
Unless you have some really good reason for coming in afterwards.
Yep. Special cases, yes.
Yeah. We're doing this like health insurance. We only have open enrollment once a year.
Yeah. It's to keep it an intimate space with people who are really, very deeply interested in the material. So there's that. We are also, of course, running our retreat in May. And signups are still running for that, of course, and that will be going until March 12th, I think, is our deadline for signups and registration fees and all of that stuff. That will also be in the description with a landing page where you can learn everything you'll need to know, plus ways to contact us for further details, all of that stuff. All right, I have rambled enough this morning. Let's get to our topic. We are going to be talking more deeply about alchemy today. What are we specifically covering this morning, Mushtaq?
Today, we are going to be looking at probably the core document of the Hermetic tradition.
Yes, we are talking about the Emerald Tablets.
Yes.
Yeah.
The Emerald Tablet associated with Hermes Trismegistus, which means thrice great Hermes.
Now about that authorship.
Yeah, about that authorship, yeah. Hermes is associated with the Egyptian god Thoth, the ibis-headed god, who brought learning and alphabets and all of this sort of thing, writing to the world in that particular tradition. But in the Islamic tradition, he's associated with the prophet Idris. And there is a pretty strong connection there. And so this comes down, the Emerald Tablet comes down through this line, the line from Idris to us. There are people who give Emerald Tablet really interesting providence. You know, the last time I talked about this, I got a note from somebody, you know, telling me, no, you're wrong. The Emerald Tablet, it comes from Atlantis, and then it went to Egypt, and then it went to this place, and then it went to that place, and then it went. It sounds good. It's fun. It's nice to think about that. And the oldest existent documents that we have for the Emerald Tablet are all in Arabic. They come from 1 8th century CE and 1 9th century CE book, and everything else comes from these two.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's the objective fact.
Yeah.
And the stories about Atlantis and everything sound like fun, but this is what we know for sure. The oldest, and as a matter of fact, there are no mentions of the Emerald Tablet before these documents in any other language, any other place. You don't find the Egyptians talking about it. You don't find the Greeks talking about it before this. At least I've never found a document. Now, it has been retranslated numerous times. And it seems that everybody who translates it adds something to it. So if you look at the original, which is what we're going to be working with today, and you look at, say, Isaac Newton's translation. Isaac Newton translated this, and he translated it from the Latin.
I just turned on captions. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. But in Isaac Newton's translation, it's almost twice as long as the original. So stuff has been added since then. And what I've noticed is that in all of the translations, whoever is translating it has added opinions of their own to the translation. They've made it go in the direction that they want it to. So Madame Blavatsky's translation looks a lot like Theosophy. Newton's translation looks a lot like British alchemy and a little like physics. But to really understand this, I think that we have to go back to the original. And the original appears for the first time in a book whose name I will now attempt to butcher. Let's find it in. No, where did I put that name?
I think it was written in the description. And
yeah, it was written into the description. Yeah, usually we refer to it as the Sirr al-khalīqa. And the name means secret of, I'm not sure how you would translate khalīqa.
Sirr al-khalīqa. Is that what it says?
Yeah, there's an I in there. Let me write it out for everybody.
The secret of creation, the secret of, I think that's what it means.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
No worries, I'll cut and paste it. I have it.
You have it? Okay.
Yeah.
Then I'll let you cut and paste it.
Sure. It's the long name, but this is it sounds like it's kind of like an abbreviation, a nickname that you guys are mentioning.
Yeah.
Sirr. Okay, there we go.
Now, the book that this is written in is attributed to an interesting figure who is known in Greek as Apollonius of Tyana. Tyana is a town in Cappadocia in Turkey. And he is, in the Islamic tradition, he's known as Belinus. And he has the title, the King of Wonders and Talismans. He is well known as a magician and has sort of been adopted into Islam. So that is and I should say that it is considered doubtful that Apollonius actually wrote this manuscript. So he's known as pseudo-Apollonius of Tyana when they talk about this in academic circles. So it's a much more lengthy book than just the golden tablet or the emerald tablets, but they appear at the end of the book, as I remember.
Megan says, and I hope it's okay to read this.
Yeah.
If anyone doesn't want me to share what they have to say, you can mention that in your comment, that it's private, or just send it to me. I really appreciate the focus on scholarship more than speculation / rumor here. Yeah, that tends to be our MO. We do have our own opinions on things and we do share those, but I personally feel that we tend to frame them as, hey, this is our opinion, take it or leave it, but here are the facts that we're basing this on. So thank you for taking note of that. It's appreciated.
Yeah, and there is plenty of speculation. Everybody has their story about this, and it gets further and further afield. The more it is written. There's now a book out called The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, which is kind of based on the original, but is so far flung from it that it bears almost no resemblance to the original.
And these things start getting floofy and they lose their power in the floofiness. And I think that's something that we try to be conscious of. Because
floofy is a technical scholarly term for that.
Yeah. But it does not take away from the fascinating nature of these tablets to talk about the evidence that we have, the tangible evidence that we have. I think we need to remember that.
So it is our contention that the Emerald Tablet is a leguminism. And we've talked about this before. A leguminism is a term perhaps coined by Gurjief, certainly used by him. And it's the kind of word that he would make up. And that is an artifact of some sort that contains embedded in it knowledge meant to be transmitted down through the ages, that can only be experienced consciously. And he talks about different kinds of leguminisms, but this is a particular kind. It is a kind that you don't just stand in front of it and get it. You have to open yourself to the experience of what it is and what it carries. And to that end, you have to be able to hear it in the Arabic. Why would that be, do you think? Why do you have to be able to hear it in the Arabic? And there was silence, crickets.
Yeah, who wants to take a stab?
I
Ooh,
could.
James
Great.
or Megan. Yeah, Megan, why don't you go first, and then we'll have James and I
Well,
see
my
Nancy's
thought-
unmuted too.
My thought is just like anytime someone has an insight that they try to write down, it's like you're already translating from your actual experience into words. And then, so there's a drift there. And then every time you translate it, there's further and further drift. So just like you were talking about earlier, even if people are trying to do a faithful translation, there's always a little bit of drift. So getting as close as possible to how it was originally conveyed.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And with Arabic, somebody else had a thought?
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
James.
James,
is
tell us
unmuted,
about this. What do you
and
think?
Nancy as well.
Well, it's an assumption. If Arabic is the earliest record and closest to the source that has more power, more authenticity behind it. I mean, I know it's a bit crude and simplistic, but if you want
But it ain't
the
wrong.
force, okay. That was, like I said, it was just an assumption on my part. But it has, this is going to sound vague, not just the scholastic accuracy, but if there's a spiritual force behind it, a force of reality behind it, go back to the original when it was conceived. That's just my assumption.
Yeah, and Arabic is a unique language for that. That's one of the things I find interesting. The language is almost built to transmit information like this, more than any of the other Semitic languages, I think. The people who are Hebrew scholars might disagree with me, and they are welcome to, and they have valid arguments for that as well. But for me, I think Arabic is built as a language of transmission.
Okay, Nancy, did you have a thought? I see
Yeah,
James has a
yeah.
thought
I
again,
don't
too.
know Arabic, but I do know that a lot of the words are built on shared three-letter roots.
Roots,
So that
Yes.
so that how can I put it? They're clumped into meanings. This might convey more than just words in most languages.
Yeah, the way that Arabic is structured is one of the reasons that it is so good for creating leguminisms. You know, and we have the one overriding example of a leguminism. Sorry, I'm about to get warned of something.
I have a reminder for Mushtaq.
Forgot to turn it off. Oh, well.
Forgot to turn that down, yeah. In the Quran, which is the most powerful leguminism that I have ever run across. And we could talk for hours on that,
Yeah.
but we don't need to. Yeah.
All right, James.
Yeah.
What,
I was going to say that if you want to know about this, we did a talk some time ago on the Sufi method of reading sacred texts, and I will put somewhere up here a link to it at the end of this video that you can go and view and learn the process.
Got it. Okay. All right, James.
Oh, I just had a question then. It's very popular in modern yoga circles to talk about Sanskrit as this spiritual language, uniquely structured, etc. How do Sanskrit and Arabic, and I know nothing about the structure of either, by the way, but how do they?
Sanskrit is structured very differently, and it is definitely a language that also imparts ideas. There are some Sanskrit texts that I consider to be leguminisms. The Yoga Sutras are one, for a later one.
Okay.
And yeah, so that is, Sanskrit is interesting for completely different reasons than Arabic is. But if I start talking about that, we're going to be here for 3 or 4 hours. So we'll save that for another time.
These chains. And Nancy and Megan, thank you. All right. Where were we?
So, would you like to hear what it sounds like in Arabic?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
would.
As it happens, I have coaxed, bribed, and cajoled Wael into reading it for us. Because if you heard it with my accent, it wouldn't be nearly as good.
It's such a build-up, man. I feel like I have the weight of the whole Arabic world on my shoulders right now.
Just a
I'll
little
do my
one.
best. Just a tiny bit, tiny bit. Okay, are we ready?
Yeah.
Anytime.
حق لا شك فيه صحيح إن الأعلى من الأسفل والأسفل من الأعلى عمل العجائب من واحد كما كانت الأشياء كلها من واحد بتدبير واحد أبوه الشمس أمه القمر حملته الريح في بطنها غدته الأرض أبو الطلسمات خازن العجائب كامل القوى نار صارت أرضا أعزل الأرض من النار اللطيف أكرم من الغليظ برفق وحكم يصعد من الأرض إلى السماء وينزل إلى الأرض من السماء وفيه قوة الأعلى والأسفل لأن معه نور الأنوار فلذلك تهرب منه الظلمة قوة القوى يغلب كل شيء لطيف يدخل في كل شيء غليظ على تكوين العالم الأكبر تكون العمل فهذا فخري ولذلك سميت هرمس مثلث الحكمة.
There you have it.
Wonderful.
What do you
thank
notice about the Arabic? Just listen to it as if it were music. And think of it as music, and what do you gain from the sounds of it? And I will tell you 2 things that I notice immediately. One is that it is structured and spoken in such a way that it can be easily memorized. And 2, you could sing it. And that both of those go towards the idea of an Arabic original. If you take something, well, a perfect example is the opening surah of the Quran, al-Fatiha, right? I can tell you the English translation of it, and it sounds like I'm talking to you. But if you hear it in Arabic, it's a song. It is music. And it is in a poetic structure that makes it very, very easy to memorize. You know, I first learned al-Fatiha 47 years ago, and I can recite it without thinking about it. It's in my memory. It's in long-term storage, and it got in very, very quickly.
I mean, my Arabic is pretty poor, but that's in there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I relate
And
to that. Yeah.
yeah. And the Hebrew does the same thing. You know, you read an English translation of the Torah, and it's boring. If you hear it recited in temple, it has that same quality of being music. Gospels, not so much, except for parts of them if you read them in Aramaic, which is interesting. But that gets us into a whole different thing again. So many digressions today.
Inspired.
So, what does this say? I will give you a translation of it. I don't think that this translation is the best.
Yeah, whose is this? Maybe I can find it and cut and paste.
I am not sure who translated this, but it's a translation directly from the Arabic, and I have gone back and forth to make sure that it's pretty close.
Okay.
And it has made certain allowances for transmission between languages. It's not bad. It's not perfect, but it's not bad, and we're working on a better one. So here is the English translation. A truth without doubt, wholly sound, that the highest is from the lowest, and the lowest is from the highest. The working of wonders is from the one, just as all things come from the one, by a single governance. Its father is the sun, its mother is the moon. The wind carries it in her belly, the earth nourishes it. Father of talismans, treasure house of wonders, perfection of powers. Fire became earth, separate the earth from the fire. The subtler is nobler than the gross. With the skilled work and restraint, it will ascend from the earth to the heaven and descend to the earth from the heaven. And within itself is the power of the highest and of the lowest. Within it is the light of lights. Therefore, darkness flees from it. Power of powers, it can conquer every subtle thing and penetrate everything gross. Following the creation of the macrocosm, the work is completed. This is my glory, and for that was Hermes named, thrice with wisdom. So that's a fair, if imperfect, rendering of the Arabic.
So if people want to view the transcript, you should be able to.
Yeah, and
Back.
let me copy that and put it
I
in.
was hoping you'd put it in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's important for those of us who can, to listen to it and absorb it
Yeah.
that way first. Yeah.
There we go.
Nice.
And you'll notice it's divided up into 9 sections. which I found very amusing. And I have actually, I've worked out the Arabic and the Arabic transliteration, which is how you say the Arabic words, and a slightly different translation, which is more literal to the Arabic. And I will turn this into a document and post it on the Nine-Sided Circle forum for people, just because you might find it to be fun.
Yeah, and we have a link to that in our description for people who aren't
Yeah.
familiar. Yeah. It's our Facebook group. Yeah, I'm glad that we're going to make a document because I think that will be a good resource for people to
Yeah,
go and check out.
especially if they want to go back and take that, the Sufi method of reading sacred documents
Mhm.
and apply it to this, which is I'm going to actually recommend. And if we're really lucky, and if you all ask nicely, we may get Wael to make an audio recording of this that he can put up so that people can listen to it over and over.
Just a tiny world, Wild. Just a tiny world.
Anything for you guys, anything.
A question, Donna, what did you think of this? Because you can understand it in the original.
Very interesting, the mention of al-wahid,
Mhm.
and it takes me to think about al-wahidiyya, not al-ahadiyya, because al-wahid from it, if we think of creation, because it is al-khalīqa, then al-wahid comes from it, the beautiful names, if
Yes.
we are thinking of al-asma, al-husna. So it's very interesting. It starts with al-wahid and ends with the triangle, the Trinity.
Yes.
Because the Trinity is actually, for example, I can quote Ibn Arabi, because Ibn Arabi thinks that creation is from the Trinity and not from al-wahid, because nothing comes from al-wahid except wahid.
Yes.
And
And we
what's-
say that as well. We don't call it the
Mm.
Trinity, we call it the three laws.
Exactly.
Yes.
If we think, yeah. What's interesting, I wanted to ask a question. I didn't see the element of water, whereas I've seen fire, wind, and earth.
Yes. And
So
that
maybe
is
water
a
is there.
very,
Yes.
yeah, very excellent observation, because that is not here.
Mm.
Obviously, it's hidden.
Mm-hmm. Unless water is meant to be hidden, or
Yes.
and then again, I think of everything comes from water. وَخَلَقْنَا كُلَّ شَيْءٍ مِنَ الْمَاءِ, for example. And the idea of it being, you hear it like a song, because reality comes from poetry rather than prose. We learned at the beginning poetry, but maybe we forgot that. Now we are more focusing in our modern day on prose, but actually we have to be in poetry. We exist in poetry, everything. For me, I mean, for my humble opinion.
I am completely convinced that your opinion is correct on this for a lot of different reasons.
Yeah, so just
Can we keep you?
opinion.
Would you like to? You should stick around. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This is in English, but in Arabic it will take me into many, many more, because I can go into the letter itself, to dig deep, because as you said, why listen Arabic? Because if creation, we have two types of creation through language, from kun fayakun, it's language.
Mhm.
And then you have the creation that comes from something that has been created. So we have two types of creation. So definitely, if you mentioned why Arabic, if we are thinking of creation as language, then maybe there is something in the words, the letters. For example, we say harful ba in Arabic, and then again, Hebrew, the Genesis, if it starts with ba, bresht. And then
Yes.
you know, so truth is one, and this is what I can say, truth is everywhere, but we have maybe to dig and look for it. Just a humble comment and opinion.
Yeah, that's a very useful comment and opinion, I think. And I think you're right on with your observations, especially, yeah, one notices that Wahid is incredibly important in this document.
How would we define that for people who are not familiar with these terms?
Well, I will pass that over to you.
In simple terms, and to be honest, that's the only way I get things. It's the one, the one that brings us all together, the one that is living and breathing through everything, before we were here, when we are here, after we are gone. It's that all unifyingness that makes any one of you here or listening on the recording united with my breath, and me united with yours. It's a mass. It's just, I know it's just one number, but within that is everything. So it's very, very symbolic.
Thank you to both of you. Yeah, and the three laws, of course, are, we can define them as affirming, denying, reconciling, as active, quote unquote, passive, and oh my gosh.
Reconciling.
Reconciling again. Yeah, so I mean, we can think again.
Yeah, and now here's the thing.
Yang, yin, and
Yin, yang, and tai chi.
Tai chi. Yeah.
Yeah. But here's the thing. You look at this and it talks about the one, and then as Donna observed, they only talk about three elements. And I suspect that is from the one comes three, right? It's not two, it's three. And I think that those three elements, the earth, air, and fire, are representative of the law of three in creation, and also of the three alchemical elements of the mercury, sulfur, and salt. And there's one other interesting little line in this.
So I just want to, since we're talking about elements, Nancy says, maybe water is concealed in verse 8. Conquering might be water. Penetrating sounds like water.
Yeah, and that could be. The other interesting line for me in this, and the first time I realized that it was this line when I was taking the Arabic apart with my dictionary and going, what do these words actually mean? Is the line about light, because it so reflects the ayat al-nur from the Quran, the verse of light.
So which one is this? I'm reading back. It's towards
I'll
the
find
end.
it for you. Yeah.
Okay, 7.
Yes.
And within itself is the power of the highest and of the lowest. Within it is the light of lights, therefore darkness flees from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nur al-Nur.
Yep. And who knows, it may be connected in some way, though this was written after the Quran, though it's supposed to be older than the Quran.
Even another message.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, David. Yeah.
Yeah, he'll be back though. He said
Mhm.
he's going to come to both of them today.
Yeah. There. Okay. So we
So,
talked about the light
yeah.
section.
And the fact that the original text is in Arabic suggests to you that some Sufis might have gotten a hold of it. And we know that various tariqas over time have practiced alchemy.
Sufi
I know,
groups, yeah.
yeah. I can think of a couple in Iran that were really big on the whole alchemical thing. Not to make gold, they were more interested in purification of elements to make medicines and that sort of thing, but still, same process. And you find in Gurdjieff's Struggle with the Magicians, we did a video on that a while back. You will notice that he speaks from this document in a couple of places. You know, the white magician in that particular story is an alchemist. And from the descriptions, we see this to be the case. And so that's the connection of, you know, Sufism and Gurjief, and the Emerald Tablet kind of runs like that. Gurjief picked some of this stuff up in his travels, and it reflects in his teachings. So how do you work with this? One thing that you can do is, if you happen to have a recording of the Arabic, you can listen to it while reading the translation. And because it is a legominism, it will affect you in a certain way. You can let these ideas in and percolate. And they will, if you water them with your attention, they will grow like seeds. So take a look at how to read sacred text according to weird Sufi guys, and apply that to this. Listening to the Arabic while reading the English, or just listening to the Arabic if you happen to speak Arabic. And everybody should speak Arabic, just because it frustrates the bigots. So that's a little look at this most mysterious of things. And let's throw it open to thoughts, questions, answers.
Yeah, how about you guys? Shuri, what about you? I know this is kind of out there for you, but I'm curious what your thoughts might be.
Morning.
Hi.
How when you're using sound, I was actually involved with a Taoist group for a while, but everything was in Mandarin, and I don't speak Mandarin, but I didn't actually gain any feeling for the work through that, so I left that group. This has actually been thought-provoking about that, you know, listening to Wael speak. It's just like, it's so soothing and so calming. So I'm going to have to actually go into that exercise and listen to the translation or read the translation as I hear the sound, because there is something in that, something moved me then. That's what I say about that.
Yeah, hearing the words in Arabic without any knowledge of them is like the lowest level of listening to this. It's beautiful. You know, before I spoke any Arabic, I could listen for hours to Arabic poetry, to Quran reading, to any of that sort of thing. And I would find it wonderful to listen to. It's like a symphony. But once I began to understand the meaning, it got way more powerful.
Yeah, I used to visit my friend Miriam and have the same experience because they would have it playing on the TV and stuff in their household. But it has that musicality to it that is very striking. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that, Cherie.
Yeah, and I will be very, very interested to see what you gain from it by doing that.
You know, if anything, but it's possible. Mm-hmm.
Well, I actually copied the text from your chat because I thought sometimes you can't go back once you got the recording, and that it already moved me to do that. I don't do that. So there you go.
That feels good. Yay. And of course, we'll have that document up as soon as we can within the week. Next couple days at the most, I hope. Yeah. Well, except I don't know about the translation, but yeah, we'll get the text up at the very least.
Yeah, well, we can work with the translation that I've been working on. Right now, I basically took an almost word-for-word translation, messing with it only enough to give it an English structure. And it's imperfect, but it helps when you're going along and reading the transliteration or listening to the Arabic. And it's that problem of nothing can be truly translated. It can only be interpreted.
Yeah, like Megan said, right?
Yeah.
Megan, do you have any thoughts or questions you might like to share after we've had this discussion?
Not right now, just that I'm curious to study the language more. I'm kind of inspired. And was kind of pleasantly surprised to hear Mushtaq you say, like, it's better if you understand it, because I've also been in circles where I think people were talking about maybe Sanskrit or some other ancient languages and saying, oh, you don't even need to understand it. It's actually better if you don't. Just listen and let it affect you, which never felt to me.
Almost choked on that one. Yeah, no, it is not better to not understand it. Yeah. In Islam, there is one area that I've always had trouble with, and that's if you're not an Arabic speaker, you still have to know the Quran, right? You have to be able to recite verses from it in Arabic, but they teach you just the sounds without the meaning. And so you have whole groups of people who are sitting around just making noises with their mouth.
They can say
no
everything
idea
beautifully,
what it means. Yeah.
but they have no clue what it's actually conveying as they make those sounds. Yeah.
And I would much rather speak Arabic with a New Mexico accent and know what I'm saying, even if nobody else does.
Yeah, I'm trying to open up to that feeling too, because this is important, I think, for you and for me and for anyone else who has this level of interest. It takes a degree of humbleness to just accept, you know, it's not going to sound perfect, or it might with a lot of work, but the point is really to just give it a genuine bit of consideration to understand as we speak it. Yeah. How about James? Do you have any other things you might like to add before we wrap up? I'm going to check in with everybody because we got time for that.
Yeah.
I'll just observe that my only sort of knowledge of alchemy and the Emerald Tablet and everything comes from popularized stuff when I was in my teens, just sort of the whole sort of Golden Dawn, Crowley onwards. And while I found that stuff fascinating in my teens because it was very exotic and it alleviated boredom, I never observed anyone into that kind of stuff really benefiting from it in any significant way. So this is particularly interesting for me for giving me a different perspective. And the Arabic origin, I can't even recall that ever being discussed in the sort of pop Western occultism Golden Dawn onwards literature. I'm sure it was.
Surprised.
I can't recall. I honestly can't. I read a lot of that stuff when I was a kid.
No, I've never seen it either, and I read all of it as well, and it doesn't fit with the mythology for them. And that's the thing. They want it to be Egypt and Atlantis, and yeah, it could have been Egypt, but it would have been Mamluk Egypt, where that's like when Egypt became Muslim and was an Arabic caliphate, basically. And it might be that some scholar, went to Alexandria and found an ancient text and translated it to get the bones of this, or not. We don't know. And that's the problems. We don't know the history of the Emerald Tablet before this text. There is nothing that talks about the Emerald Tablet before this text that I have ever found. And I looked pretty deeply into this, and I'm a halfway decent scholar. And all of the stories of its origin come after this text. So I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off saying this. And the last time I talked about it, I got a lot of flack, and I was just being brief with it. And that's okay. I love to argue.
Yes. James, thank you. And I think that many people will share that experience of, just not having that sense of historicity, not engaging with that because these texts have been so frankly appropriated by modern occult movements. Yeah,
it's like every occult movement in the 18th and 19th century grabbed hold of this in various translations and tried to make it their own, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah. But now we just go back and we kind of do the forensics in a way of uncovering what's underneath that. Yeah,
and we can, thankfully, we have the original text to work from,
which is kind of rare in this domain. Nancy, how about you? Any other thoughts you'd like to add? Questions? You're muted. Do you need me to? There you go.
Yeah. Yes, I was looking at the verses and thinking about how there's a very definite sense of some things are better than other things, but the top gathers up the whole hierarchy.
I think that's an interesting observation as well. Thank you for pointing that out.
And that's all I've got.
It's a good one. That's a good gut. Thanks, Nancy.
Welcome.
Donna, how about you? Any last thoughts? While we'll ask you as well too.
Nothing so far. Very interesting the comments from everybody.
Likewise, very interesting comments from you. Thank you for being here. Wild, how about you? Any last thoughts you might like to share?
Just for me, having worked on this for the last couple of days and preparing it, it really, the words sound like they're home, if that makes sense. Often a lot of stuff that we get in Arabic that has been translated from something else has an energy that is from elsewhere. But for me, and I don't claim to be a language expert, I'm just a simple, very curious person, but this feels so home. The words feel like they're so home. They're sitting on a couch with their feet on top of something very comfortable, having some tea. That's how home it feels. The other thing I wanted to share, I like the interplay of earth to sky, sky to earth. So that was very interesting for me, how these two realms are connected and there's a descending and an ascending, because we tend to traditionally think that this is the lower realm and we're separated somehow. And the other thing that really struck me was the part of fleeing darkness. That was cool. When darkness flees or darkness escapes, it's because I'm guessing we live in a world today, at least some would say, that is engulfed by darkness, darkness of awareness of ourselves. And that darkness is strong, so to speak. But for something to make something so large, so powerful flee, that's got to be a big deal. And those are my thoughts.
Good thoughts. And I think it's really sweet to think about, this has that sense of familiarity to you. Like you can really sink your teeth into it and feel comfortable and, as you say, be at home with it.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways that you can know that this is the original. And I have found that in a number of different languages, and Arabic is one. If you hear Ibn al-Arabi in the original, it feels different than any of the translations. All of the translations to me feel contrived. And, he is so dense in his material that I think it's nearly impossible to translate him correctly.
Yeah.
But his Arabic flows nicely. It's way more comfortable. Even if I only get, one word out of 4 sometimes.
Yeah, for those who are not familiar, Ibn Arabi is one of the most important, not only scholars, but kind of, I guess he's considered a saint, right?
Yeah,
In
he's
Sufism.
he's a big deal.
Yeah.
And for good reason. Though some of us have thought that he was God's curse upon naughty scholars. Because, it literally took me a year to get through one of his simplest texts and understand what I was seeing.
Yeah. He's pesky like that.
Yeah, he is pesky like that.
Dense material. The language is complicated.
I know
and
people who
difficult.
were putting up prayers. Oh God, I promise to be good if you never make me read Arabi again.
Yeah. So some people read him as pretentious. Some people read him as brilliant.
He can be pretentious.
Yeah.
He can be totally pretentious. And at the
But-
same time, he was
yeah.
completely brilliant and onto something.
And his philosophy has influenced many other traditions at this point,
Yeah.
I feel. Or it echoes many ancient traditions and allows for a kind of opening through which to understand some pretty heady concepts around like oneness of all and things like that. Yeah. Yep. And we also talked about Gurjief, and I know most people know who Gurjief is, but in brief, how would you describe Gurjief for those who don't know?
Really interesting fellow who came to the West almost out of nowhere, laid down a method of teaching that nobody in the West had experienced before, and then left us.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
His teaching methodology was unique at the time when compared to everybody else.
Yeah, because someone asked me about the fourth way recently, so I figured since we had a moment, we could talk about the founder for a moment. So, Megan says, one thing I notice is that somehow, quote, the one, unquote, has a mother and father, i.e. the moon and the sun, in other relationships with the wind and earth. I was struck by that and am still puzzling over it because I would assume the one includes the sun and moon, etc.
I suspect that this gets into the transcendent and immanent aspects. The one is transcendent. It is above everything, beyond everything. But its manifestations in the world, its attributes are, they have to be brought into the world through particular channels. And I suspect that that's what it is. That is definitely something that we should talk about at length, though we'll probably do that in the Sufi class rather than in public, because we'll have to say words like God and stuff like that.
I am reading that right though, right? When it says in verse 3, its father is the sun, its mother is the moon, it's talking about the one that was mentioned in the previous.
Yeah, one can think that that's it, and then again, maybe not. But when I read it, I think that's talking about a particular manifestation of the one. And in bringing this back to alchemy, alchemy is based on the idea that the one exists in all things. And along with the one are various impurities, as well as essential elements. So alchemy is designed to strip away the impurities and recombine the essence into something that is pure and whole and immutable. And this may refer to that alchemical process of solve et coagula, to dissolve and then rebuild. And later today, we're going to be talking more about the alchemical process in a very weird way. So stay tuned.
Yeah, that was, thank you for bringing up
Yeah,
that
that's a good
food
question.
for thought, Megan. Yeah. I saw Donna had her hand up at some point. Did you have something you wanted to share? And then I see Wael after. Yeah.
Just wanted to have a try in regard to the sun and moon.
Mm-hmm.
Can we think of it as the marriage between al-ruh and nafs, Adam and Eve, if we think of it, because the nafs is always, changing, and the moon has different states, whereas supposedly al-ruh should be as clear as the sun. I was thinking of it, if we can think of a shams, because we think of it from الروح والنفس يأتي الجسد in a way, if we want to think of it the body comes after the connection between al-ruh and nafs. We can think of Christ when al-nafs from Jibreel, and then you have Mary, if we think of Mary. I mean, just thinking, and then Christ came out. So I thought maybe the sun and the moon as ruh and nafs, just trying, to...
I like this.
So for those who don't know,
thank you.
The nafs is like, we could translate that as the ego, the kind of the fluctuations of every day, our moods, our nitpicky thoughts, all of those things, the things that we are impulsive about in ways that are both helpful and not helpful, all of that. And then the ruh is like, this is trickier to explain. We, in brief, we could think of it as the soul, the spirit, the essence.
Yeah.
And that is
the divine life that was breathed into humanity at creation, almost.
Or the observer, even.
Yeah.
That part of us that observes the going on, the goings on of our moods and behaviors and all of that stuff.
And it can be called essential self. And both words can be translated as spirit or soul, and both are related to breath, interestingly enough.
I think there's something to that about, they're being united in embodiment, right?
Yes, because we know if you look at the working through the 7 stages of the nafs, it matches up almost perfectly to the 7 steps in the alchemical process.
Yeah. And I'm actually having the thought, as I say, that they are united in embodiment, that again, we're talking about a 3. We have the ruh and the nafs, and then we have the material of our body that is, it's all connected. Those are not separate, and yet we can identify them as separate for the purpose of engaging with them.
Yeah, and then the one becomes the reconciling force between the sun and the moon.
Yes. The ruh,
So,
the nafs, the body, Thank you. That was excellent.
Yes.
Well, yes.
I was just going to say that Megan's question reminded me of something Donna said. Is it Donna or Dunya?
I was wondering about that. How should we pronounce your name? How would you prefer?
Donna.
Donna.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So
Yes.
It reminded me of what she said in the beginning, when she said something on the lines of, you have the one that everything gets created from, but you also have creation that has come from the created, something like that. I remember.
Yeah, she mentioned that.
So Megan's, the sun and the moon, I'm just guessing, are the life that is coming from that source, from the created element. That's all I got with that. It just reminded me of what Donna said in the beginning.
Thank you.
Well, this was awesome. I know I enjoyed this conversation because I'm learning about alchemy along with you all. So the deeper we go, the more I think all of us learn, and I really appreciate that. Mushtaq, do you have anything you'd like to add?
This was great fun. I really enjoyed this. This is a topic that I really like, and you guys have been wonderful. This would have been a lot more boring if it wasn't for all of you being here.
I mean, he's put a lot of work into preparing, and I've been watching him do it, but it's always enriching to have people jump in and add their thoughts too. Yeah. All right then.
And extra thank yous to Wael and Donna, because you give us access to the original language of the text. and the thoughts around it. So that's important.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we can do Brady Bunch mode, right?
We can do Brady Bunch mode.
Yeah. It's that time.
Here we are.
All right then. So thank you everyone for being here, whether you're here live or watching on the replay. And we have our little ritual now of waving to each other and waving to everyone who's watching. And we will see you this evening. Bye.
All
Take
right.
care.
Take care, folks.